morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You know what I like to do on the show. I want to say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we are talking about the spiritual journey. That's right, the spiritual journey from healing, from hurting to healing and to helping. This amazing journey of survival from abuse to healing and being of service to others in their healing journey. Now, who says that she wants to do that? My guest today, and her name is Karma Ray, and she's written the book, It's Just an Experience. Get over it. Now, let me tell you just a little bit about Karma Ray. She is not only an author, but she's also a speaker and a holistic practitioner. She has spent over 25 years helping people heal their emotional past as an energy healer, a medical intuitive, a massage therapist, and hypnotherapist. She has experienced the miracle of healing. Karma Ray has lived with a family secret. She was abused. She would later have near 3 death experiences, and her first being at the age of 8 years old. Her energy body was escorted from her physical body by her grandfather, who passed over when she was only 3 months old. She was shown many things about what this journey here in the physical world was all about. She decided to return to the physical body to continue this experience. Now, I know, you want to hear more about it, so Dr. Angela, come on, let's get to getting. I hear you, because I want to know more, too. Now, you know what I'm about to say? Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee, get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Karma Ray. Thank you so much for being on Daily Spark with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dr. Angela. I'm really excited about being here with you guys.
Now, I want to very much talk about your book, but before we do, for people that may not be familiar with what you do, if you would please, can you remind or explain to everyone, what is someone who's a medical intuitive?
A medical intuitive is somebody who is tapped in or has the ability to tap into the physical body, read the energy of the body, and it tells basically as if it's a vibrational data of the history of what a person has gone through. So I am able to, when I work with my clients, able to read their body and find out why their knee isn't healing, or how come this experience, they're experiencing certain misalignments and aren't able to heal. And so I'm able to kind of go in and search that in the energy body, have a conversation with the person of like, this is what I found, this is how old you were, this is what it was about. And when we address it, the body is able to release it. So it's like unfinished experiences for them. And when we tap the consciousness of today into, say, perhaps a childhood experience, some of them remember it, and others are like, that makes sense, the language I use, or the day, or, like where I energetically, I say see the information, and so sometimes I'll get a picture. And so that's what I do with the medical intuitive stuff.
I love that. Now, as a pastoral counselor, I have used a certain terminology, and most people are familiar with the various types of therapies that are available, but perhaps we have some new people on and they're not familiar with the term hypnotherapist. Can you explain to us what that is?
And so working with hypnotherapy, it's working with the subconscious mind. And so everybody, it's like our data bank on our computer. And so when you have an experience, like during the day, and then it's either super important and you need to address it, so you'll tend to deal with it in the moment. Sometimes you don't have the ability to, so you basically within an hour, it's pushed into our subconscious mind. And so what happens is some of that fear, some of the things from past experiences take us into doing things, and we're not sure why we're doing it. But we go into the subconscious mind, and so we do breath work and take a person into a relaxed state, and we go in and out of subconscious mind all the time. So when we say, oh, tell me about it, what it was like to be at a beach. It's like, I've never been to a beach. What is that like? And then the person starts to describe it. Their whole body actually is like, oh, I'm sitting on the beach and I feel relaxed. So the database that we draw from. So imagine if you had an experience where trust was an issue. So you go to another experience or relationship, and then it triggers all your trust issues, because that's the only thing you know about relationship is mistrust. And so people run those subconscious programming. And so as a therapist, we go in and go, okay, so we go into that subconscious data bank in the body or in the mind, and then we work with that person to unravel it and get different equations. I want to use equations. I'm into math. So I would say there's always an equation to everything. So if you didn't have enough knowledge to say this is wrong, you stuck it, you kept it as the truth. And so anytime somebody's going through a negative experience or trauma or abuse, that the person around them telling them, nope, this is true, this is real, this is important, that you do this way. And they're like, well, I don't know why I keep doing it, because I don't believe it's true anymore, because that program is still there. So we hear about, you're playing old records. And that's the mindset of replaying old history.
And you really talked about something that is so important, because you're right. So many times people say that they want to do something new, but it's hard to do something new if you haven't replaced the old mindset. If you continue to hold on to that broken record, those ill-gotten habits, those things that aren't true for you now, if you continue to hold on to that, you're not going to get that change. So thank you so much for reminding everyone of that. That was definitely a nugget for them to take with them. Now, being an author, is that something that you always wanted to do, or did you find that was just the next logical step for you on this journey?
I don't think I used to really enjoy writing in school, but I never really thought, I'm going to be an author one day. And I think the process of becoming an author and having this story out there was really a tool and a platform for me to have a conversation, because abuse is still hidden and people don't know what to say, or those sort of things of unraveling. Or having a gateway to have a conversation with somebody. And so I think it's important that it be out there and the stuff. And it's also, it's a healing part, like for people that go through an experience, it's finished. And it was really interesting. I kept having this in my consciousness, and I'm like, I don't want to keep rattling off this story. Here, go read my book. And so that gave me headspace so that I could work on and move forward, right? And so I think that part of getting the story out is more of, it's not about I needed sympathy. It's just a part of here's the truth. Here's what people can go through, and nobody knows about it. And so, it just made space for me. It was kind of a very huge revelation that I literally didn't have to think about it on a daily basis. How do I survive it? How do I do this? I actually, you actually healed this. Good job. Sort of thing. And so that part of it,
I love that. Now, the title, it's just an experience, get over it. Did you find that the title came to you first and you wrote your story around that as far as what you wanted to share? Or did you find that you were writing and the title kind of grew out of the writings? How did you come up with the title?
Well, I was actually folding laundry. And seriously, and because I didn't know what do you call it? What's the trigger? But the name of again, that part of it is during my journey, and obviously if you read the book, that part of it is that we do choose lessons and things in this lifetime in order for us to grow and evolve and become better people, and so that all of these things that we have is an experience, and we can either stay stuck in some of the negative, or we can catapult from that. And so it's hard to say to somebody that's gone through abuse, just get over it. and because healing is a process. And so that part of it becomes on a spiritual level, and again, with what I was shown in my death experience, is this really isn't where you get stuck. This is about you moving forward and finishing contracts and spiritual contracts. And so I didn't know those I didn't know those words when I had my death experience. I didn't have them in my vocabulary. And so it set me out on a, so that part of the title is to get over it on a spiritual level. Is don't get stuck in it. Don't own it. And just, again, it's a healing process. It's part of the journey of evolving as people, right?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you explained it that way, because that's one of the things that I share with people. Now, my listeners know that I'm a breast cancer survivor. And one of the things that I say is that so many times we get so caught in our story that if we change the story, it means that we're no longer that particular person. So, people many times will talk and say, well, my cancer. And it's like, don't you want to be cancer-free? Like, let's take the next step so that we can make that evolution and be cancer-free. Let's be free of that illness and not hold on to it. So thank you so much for explaining it that way. I love that. Now, you kind of touched on it in your answer a little bit, but I want to ask, what are you able to share with us? Because I know you can't share it all, because you do have to buy the book, folks. And everyone knows I say that all the time. I make that little reminder. It's like, you got to buy the book to get the whole story. But what can you share with us about your experience? And because I don't want you to give it all, because we're going to have to go to break and I want to come back. But what can you share about your experience that allows someone to know that you can get through it?
I think that part of, I guess for me, the part of the belief system is that if we're able to acknowledge that within a negative experience or abuse or trauma, that part of it is it's not who you are. And so to peel that off, and I know that when people are victimized by others, that those people want to lay the shame and the blame on another human being. And so I think that part of it is that you can walk through this. And again, there's that part of knowing that, that gift of being able to change our mindset or to live your own truth. And I think, going through the experiences I've had, that part of having the guidance of God and having that experience was able to say, no, this isn't about you. This is about what's happening. And to have that little bit of separation, and then we can get through it. And I think for most people, because they're still in it, they're in the quicksand, that sometimes they don't know. So I think that part where people go, and it's hard to heal something when you're still in it. And so to be able to set up a plan of it, like I said, to get yourself into a place of safety, which is an experience itself, and then from that place you get to move forward.
I love it. I love it. Well, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, Karma Ray, could you please remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And how do we stay in contact with you?
Sure. It's you can go onto my website. It's www.soletosol.ca. So soul2soul.ca. You can also purchase the book on the website, or you can go to Balboa Press, and you can go in and order it directly from Balboa, maybe if you're in the States, that part of it. You can, part of that on my website, you can contact me on It's Just an Experience, Get Over It on Facebook. Again, the website and the Facebook pages for sure.
All right. Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Hi everyone, Dr. Angela here. Did you know that Daily Spark is now on Facebook? That's right, you can visit with me at facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I want to know more about what you're thinking. I'd love to know which interview did you find the most entertaining or the most informative. I want to talk to you, and I want you to be able to talk to me. Simply visit facebook.com/Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. Discovery. No, just a sec.
What would it look like if we listened more? Could the right voice, the right set of words, bring us all just a little closer? Get us to open up? Even push us further? It could, if we took the time to listen. The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
What a crazy year it has been. Anyone out there feeling just a little bit lost right now? Well, no problem. Join me in learning how we can turn fear into confidence that creates cash. I'm a part of a series that helps everyone pivot during these times of uncertainty. Simply visit helpmepivot.com and access this free mastermind that includes not only myself, but international experts sharing their secrets on how to turn this time into a time of opportunity. Simply visit helpmepivot.com.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is Karma Ray, and we are talking about her book, It's Just an Experience, Get Over It. We're talking about this life and the spiritual journey that we are on. Now, I love how she has explained this path that we take, and guess what? We are all on a path during this lifetime, and what are we going to do with that? Now, just a quick reminder, sometimes we need to drop those old habits. We need to let those things that no longer serve us go. And when we do, there's a whole new world out there for us to create some new traditions, some new habits, and help us along this path. Now, Karma, one of the questions that I have for you is, and you kind of mentioned it before, and that is your relationship with God. During this particular time, you have these things that are going on in your life. You have this experience that happens, and for many people, they would say, like, oh my goodness, is God still in her life? How does that work? Do you lose faith? Do you gain faith? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For sure. I think that part for me is, and it's kind of unique for me because my parents each had their own religion, but obviously what was happening in our house wasn't a very religious experience. And but even as a very young child, I always had this connection with God, and so that part of it. I went through stages where I was really angry, and I mean, I think one of my first experiences where I'd gone through the abuse had escalated, and I was so hurt and shocked and betrayed. And I, at 7 years old, standing in my bedroom screaming at God and saying, like, why aren't you, stopping this? Why, do you not love me?
Right.
And that experience was, I literally heard, I did not say you would not feel pain. I only told you I would walk through it. Now, that's pretty profound. And even saying that today, I still get emotional. And so I think that part of it was the trusting that, And I think when people go through trauma, they automatically, well, if there was a God, this wouldn't happen. And,
right.
And so that experience, right, of saying, no, that part of connecting and having that faith. Sorry, it got me really emotional.
That's okay.
But that part of understanding the trust that you have. And so, when you have a death experience, and I, have different things happen at each time that I had my death experiences at different ages. My consciousness was different. But what I was shown was nothing that I was taught in church. Or it wasn't, it wasn't something that was a part of the conversation. And so that part of coming back into the physical body and going, oh, I got an update. I got an update about what this journey is about.
Right.
So I have also that insider information about that there's a bigger part of this. And the encouragement of, seeing my grandfather who died when I was 3 months old. So I wouldn't really have a relationship with him other than the experience where he came to escort me from my body at the age of 8 when I fell off the roof. But those sort of things was that we are still loved. There are, that part, again, every religion has their own belief system about guides and spirits and protectors and angels. And I think that part of it was, this collective group of consciousness that does look after us. And, like people come out of accidents and they look, they look at the car and go, I don't know how I survived that. Yeah. And it's like, well, I bet you I know, right? And so what would have a chat? But it's those sort of things, right? That, and how do you say, and I went through some pretty heavy duty stuff, and that part of it was it was more and more. And I mean, coming back with the ability to help people heal and have these gifts of sensing energy and information that people, well, you're not working from, you're working from a dark energy. I'm like, well, I died and I got to come back. And they said, here's some special gifts you can use with people. And I'm like, I'm an accountant. I don't even know what you're talking about. What is all this stuff that you're giving me? But that part of trusting of the evolution of the gifts. And I think, like a lot of people want to know, like, well, what's my purpose in life and what's my gift? Well, it's healing your stuff. Your purpose and gift comes through the healing of your stuff. And so my connection with God was just, like I said, it was, and I say tested, but I think a lot of it, the fact that I've died and come, I jokingly say, I've been kicked out of heaven 3 times. What am I doing wrong? But, like I know, it's jokes and, that part of it. And so, but the part of it is what an amazing bond, I want to use the word bond, to know that I have gone through my journey, checked in with the boss and said, no, you're good. You got a promotion, head back. Right? Yeah. So I think it's, like I said, how can you not be connected to God, have these experiences, not be connected to God despite the trauma? And so I think that part of it is being connected to God and having God's guidance doesn't mean the journey is easy. And sometimes it's even tougher because we've signed up to have a huge growth in this lifetime, is the amount of stuff that you have to hit the wall with. And I think that part of going back into our own self of ego, because human experience involves ego, and to separate that part and say, well, no, if this is supposed to be part of my experience, how do I walk through it? And how do I bring God along with me? Because it's a pretty good partner in crime if you're going to fix something, right? So I think that part of that power of being connected spiritually, and again, that part of, I can go sit in the forest and be connected to God's source energy, if that's what God has created. And so I have many different teachings from many different cultures, and it all boils down to the fact that we're a part of something greater. And when we connect to that, then that's where our guidance comes into play. So I think I'm probably, there's not a day that doesn't go by that I'm grateful and send gratitude for this experience, despite the journey.
No, I think that I love your answer, because I think that we do have to many times think outside of the box. Unfortunately, we have so many boxes that have been man-made and self-imposed on us that it is our understanding of someone else's bad habit, and we take that on as though it's gospel for us, and it's not. That experience may have been for that person and an answer for them, but it doesn't always mean that it's an answer for us, but it can be a guide for us. It can be information to help us get through. I laughed when you said, I've been kicked out of heaven 3 times, and I think that that's funny, because you have been blessed with an opportunity to come back. But for the person who says like, oh, but she was, she got kicked out of heaven 3 times, it's like, yeah, but she didn't get sent to hell either of those times.
Nope.
So there's a really good thing. It's all about how I think we understand and perceive the information that we are given. I love it that you were promoted, and then you were saying, nope, not done. Time to go on to the next call. Go back and share what you have been given, and what a beautiful way of looking at that, because there are also stories from people who say, I went to hell and I saw it, and it's not a good place, and I have been blessed to be able to come back. So the fact that you have that story, 3 times is just a beautiful thing. Absolutely, positively that you needed to share, and thank you for doing that. Now, one of the things that you mentioned, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the last segment, is that you use these words of lessons and contracts. For someone who perhaps hasn't read the book yet, or they're unfamiliar with the terms, can you explain, what do you mean by spiritual lessons and contracts?
So out of my third death experience, I actually died on an operating table. And when I crossed over, I met, and again, the language I'm sharing with you is not language I had in my vocabulary at the time of that experience. So I crossed over, I went to council, so I sat at a round table, and I literally reviewed my life. And so you hear, my life flashed before my eyes, and I have these, people have different experiences when they don't, remember all the other stuff. And so I was literally shown a parchment paper contract that I signed about things I was going to learn, things that I was going to do. And then on that contract was a spiritual contract of accountability with my abuser. So again, it gave the abuse and the struggle and the pain and the suffering a purpose. And so if we do something bad to another human being, if we don't fix it in this lifetime, it's our karma. We take it forward. And so in that, again, that experience was they said, well, this is outstanding. You've done all this other stuff, plus you've done all of this other stuff. And I'm like, well, why did I do so much? And they said, well, when you died at 8 and you talked to your grandfather, he told you all the things you could do. I could choose from. I assumed, because I was raised in do as you're told, to do as you're told. And so I did all these things at my grandfather. So I did a bunch of things that I didn't necessarily have to complete. But we all have a learning curve in each lifetime. Now, those lessons, and again, our relationships, I may invite you into a relationship in a lifetime in order for us to grow or to learn something or heal something. And so those spiritual lessons and contracts, again, depending on the magnitude, or, again, some people don't believe in past lives. And again, I never really thought about it until I had my death experiences. But the part where we come back and we call people in that we maybe have slighted in the past life or haven't healed something, and we come to do better. We come to be our best self. And so again, that part of it is we get a second chance, or maybe a third chance, or fourth, depending on the person, right? So if there's lessons and contracts, if you're not doing the work, then you just leave with your suitcase packed with the same stuff you came in with, if you want to think about it that way. And so I think the importance of, and I always say your job I think a lot of people go, well, I want to know my purpose. And I'm like, well, what do you do for a living? And they're like, well, I'm a police officer. I said, oh, so part of your life lesson is about justice, because you want to bring justice to the world because there was an unjust experience that you've lived through. How does that feel? And when you put that together for someone, they go, oh, that totally makes sense. I look for justice everywhere. And so I think those contracts that we come into, even though the language, that part of, we are really pulled to be in a certain job or position of service in order for us to complete for ourselves what maybe justice looks like, if I'm right. And so I think the natural pull for us to be in a certain experience as far as occupation is really parallel to our spiritual purpose. And you think, well, I've done 10 jobs. Well, but you might be evolving through your life purpose. You might be evolving and bringing yourself up to a different level of what that looks like. And so spiritual contracts and lessons are basically, I'm going to learn to cook because I didn't cook in a past life. Whereas a contract, and I sort of must have been a really good baker because I was baking as a child, and sort of thing. And so that part of it is, some people go, well, how come this person has the ability to make these, beautiful woodworking things? And it's like, well, they might have been a carpenter in a past lifetime. They're just bringing forward some of their gifts. And so the contracts and lessons are kind of wrapped in all of that. And, the same thing. I have people who do jobs and they absolutely hate it. It's not their passion. And it's literally making them sick. And I'm like, well, what would you do if you didn't have to worry about it, right? Like, time or money, what would you do? And so then they go, oh, my God, and they start talking about this, maybe they go into work, when I get home, I go and I do all this woodworking. And I'm like, well, maybe that's your passion. I mean, that's your life purpose, is to bring that through. And again, maybe they were just an apprentice carpenter in a past life. Now they're supposed to be a master carpenter. And so, right? And so those are the sort of things you have to look at and go, where am I? Where would I be most joyful and passionate, so that I can, again, inspire others or bring, empower others to be their best. And you do it through what you do. I mean, when you're giving or being of service to another person, that you're spreading that evolution of your own truth to other people. And so I think the contracts and the lessons come out of that.
And you really touched on a lot, because I think that people, parents mean their children no harm overall. But I think so many times, and depending on your status or your culture, so many times parents try to lead, guide, suggest strongly, highly recommend that their children go along a particular path, or they become a certain thing, because they feel that that's going to best equip their child to be what we refer to as successful in life. But that kid really wants to be, something else. And they're miserable in that thing that their parents suggested that they do. It doesn't mean that they're not good. They succeed at it, but they're not successful in it because that's not where their heart is. And then and I think that people really need to think about that they need to be more aware of what brings happiness and joy to the person in which they're speaking to, and that includes their kids. And you touched on another thing when you talked about, especially our law enforcement people. And I know that our law enforcement folks are kind of getting a bad rap around the world. And for some people, it's true. They are doing some horrible things. But, I have a few in my family, yada, yada, yada. Folks know all about that. But it made me think about the explanation that so many give. And for the people who don't understand, the ones that say that, I'm the sheepdog. And there are wolves, there's the flock, and then there's the sheepdog. And the sheepdog has to protect the flock from the wolves out there that want to do harm. And without that sheepdog, the flock could be harmed. And, I don't think that many people understand that what so many people, and I'm using a very broad stroke of law enforcement, cops, sheriffs, all of them, that they really do have this calling, this pull for justice. So thank you so much for explaining it in a different way, and I think that that's going to really resonate with someone and help them better understand that everyone is called to do a particular thing. I love it. Now, before we go to a break, Karma Ray, if you could please, can you remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
It's Just an Experience, Get Over It. I'm on Facebook with that title. You can get my website, www.soul2soul.ca, SOLETOSOUL.ca. And you can get the book on the website. If you're in Canada, it's probably easier. If you're in the States, maybe Balboa Press. You can go directly through them.
Gotcha. Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I hope that you are enjoying your time with me today. I know that I am having a great time speaking with our guest today, Karma Ray, about her book, It's Just an Experience, Get Over It. Now, as human beings in this physical body, we are along a spiritual journey, and we need to remember that we are spirit beings having a physical experience in this life, but we should also strive to have the best spiritual journey that we can have while we are physically here on this earth. Is there something that perhaps has triggered you and made you think about something that goes, yeah, I remember that, I did want to do that? Then I know today has been a purposeful day for you. We want to, say it with me, enlighten, inspire, and empower you. Karma Ray, my next question for you is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and that is about a spiritual awakening. Why do you think you had the awakenings that you had?
I think that part of having these different, when you sign up for a contract or you sign up for a lifetime, that part of it is, why did I have those exit points and come back in? Is I think that part for me and that awakening that happened was to understand, like, really the totality. Now, I believe that in my journey that I had, in fact, agreed to have this expanded journey and experience so that I can help others. And so I say every day when I'm working with my clients that I couldn't walk you through what you're going through had I not had my experience. Mm-hmm. And so through all of it, I gathered tools to, again, to reestablish, and I want to say the reestablish is that when you go, through the anger of God, with God, because you don't think it's not, it's not happening your way, and then you think it has to be your way, and then right. I think that part of it, mm-hmm. It's like, well, if you could write, I say there is nothing in this lifetime that I could even dream about saying that this is my, that I knew this coming in the door. That I think the part of the validation and of having the death experience and go team, that there is a reason for this and there is a validation for that. But does everybody, not, and, when I died and I crossed over, the anesthesiologist was like, well, nobody's ever told me that story about this whole other part of it. And I'm like, I don't think you get that far and then come back very often. But I think the important part of the awakening is that I don't recommend the incoming flight, just so that we're clear, because it's really intense. But the part of it is the awakening is so people are encouraged to continue, even though it feels like you're pulling the piano behind you to get through life. And, sometimes we have to stop, turn around, untie the piano so we can walk freely. And I think that part of, my agreement to be in this experience of helping, eventually helping people, it was not even on my radar that was who I was going to be, but all through my lifetime, right? Those parts of the awakening are, if I said to you, if I explained why you went through this experience, and you went, that makes it so worth it. And so I think that my ability to encourage people to, look at the abuse and not just shove it under the carpet, or so those sort of things of that part of awakening is, I believe we all have awakenings. We're just maybe not necessarily acknowledging them as awakenings also, right? And so why did you have that car accident? Because you need to decide, are you going to stay or are you going to go? Right? And so how did your life change after the car accident? How did your, your experience after you had the breast cancer? Who did you become through this experience? Right? And one of my death experience, when I died and crossed over the third time, I literally got asked, who were you in this experience? And so that part of going, yeah, I did do this. And yeah, I did get to do this. And, despite everything, I didn't become the angry person that, I endured the abuse from. And so I think that part of, I believe everybody has awakenings. So I don't think I'm special. Maybe mine is a little bit different, a little more intense. But I think the part of it is because we do have checkpoints in this lifetime of saying, are you going to keep going? Are you going to keep,
right.
Did you go to high school? Did you go to college? Did you go to, where are you planning on stopping? Or are you just going to keep going until, the party at the end? And so that part of it becomes, is I think, more people, if they thought about their trauma and who they became through it, is the awakening.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. You touched on so many things, because I think that someone, even though we may not have had a near-death experience, but so many people, especially with cancer survivors, when you go under and you come back and they tell you you're cancer free, we got it all, you're okay, and you come out of that fog, we celebrate we give ourselves a new birthday. Now, some people choose the day of their surgery, some people choose the last day of all of their treatments. I chose the day of my surgery. Why? Because I woke up that day. I went under, I came back, and to me, this was an opportunity to say, okay, God brought me back. What am I going to do with this opportunity that I have been given? How do I walk in my purpose? How do I make sure that I am living out the call that He has placed on my life? So you're so right. What are we doing here? Are we just kind of walking along the path kicking rocks? Are we just are we are we really taking it all in and appreciating the opportunities, the experiences, and how do we share that? I love that you have said that. Now, for someone who picks up a copy of your book, and they've said, okay, I am going to read this. 2 questions for you. One, should they read it from cover to cover and read it like a novel? Can they simply pick it up and start anywhere and still get a nugget of wisdom? What is your suggestion on that? And last bit of that question is, what do you want people to take away from having read your book?
Well, I think the book is written, again, the hurting, the healing, the helping. And so that part of it is, a lot of the people have read it. It's like that first part was pretty tough to get through, and I can't believe people could be like that. And so I think that there's a way of, there's people who, have said, I couldn't put it down and I just read it all. And others are like, I couldn't even get through the first part. And I said, well, I hate to be a spoiler alert, but she lives, right? And so you can keep going, right? And so, but the part of it is when you talk about abuse, and I go through, and again, if I wrote everything, it would be a very long book. But it's that part where I think that part of it is the first part might trigger a lot of people if you've had trauma, if you had abuse, and you're like, but at the same time, it's like, oh my goodness, she went through this too. I have an ally. And then it's, again, about how the connection, my connection and my belief system with God, and, that, yes, I got challenged, and who doesn't get challenged with this experience and questions their faith and what that looks like. And but then it's like, again, to watch for the signs and the opportunities. And I mean, I went to India, and I had this very huge experience in India. And I mean, I never thought this part, but again, even my programming was not to go in this. So you can journey through the book if you want to, or you can read the parts, and if you can't read the first part, but again, she does live, and so it's it's okay. But it's the part where sometimes people's healing is like, people go like, I actually thought, it brought stuff up for me. So I didn't realize, right, that I didn't name abuse. Or I do this. And so I think that part of your own healing, it depends on, whether you read it front to back or back to front, and I don't think that part of it is, it's individual. But again, it becomes that part of what you want to get out of the book. but it is also a conversation thing. And I have had people say, well, I read it and then I shared it with my mom and then we talked about our family and this kind of evolution of our own healing comes out of it. And so I think the book is written in the sense of, it wasn't easy, but you can get through it. And the really powerful part of it, but at the end of it, you're shiny and bright, and you have an opportunity to choose who you want to be in this and not what somebody's imposed on you. And that part of is, I think, for me, is a powerful message, is that no matter how many times somebody tries to pull you back, you can, keep going forward. And so what does that look like? What does that look like in order to, and I've cut people out of my life that are, my birth family, because I no longer allow myself to get sucked into that vortex. And people challenge me on that, but it's those sort of things. It's like going, I'm living this purpose for myself, and I can't, spent 22 years of my life trying to fix a family that doesn't want to get fixed. And so we all know that's a toxic experience. So I think that part of it is, it gives people permission to put themselves first for just a little while, right? And then when you're healed, you can go out and even if it's a conversation over coffee with somebody, right? I sit on a C train that I get on, and I'm sitting beside people and I'm picking up energy. And so I'll say, I have a conversation with someone and they're like, I just needed that message from you today. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And so, right, that's part of it. You don't know who or when or why. But if you allow yourself to have that experience of healing so that you're in a place of, feet on the ground instead of being sucked into the vortex. So I think that part of the book, it's multi-leveled. It's, again, that part of it. I think my next book will be about all the things that I do and the treatments that I do and how I do it and why I do it. But those sort of things right now is about that. I think my hope for my book is that it is a conversation for families or people that have been in a family of abuse and trauma that haven't healed. Or, that part of it. And so, again, I think however you read it is going to be from where you are right now. And sometimes reading the first part is about really kind of opening up that part of you that you've locked away so that you just get on with life and you're not going to deal with that. So I think it's important, each part of it, but again, it's the part where you have to take what you can when you can, and if you have to put the book down, that's fine too. Right? We all get information according to what we can handle at the right time. So I hope that people are able to be inspired from that part of the book, in part, and sharing that connection again with spirituality. And, some people, again, claim I'm spiritual, but then their actions don't support that. So it's, again, a self-check too. Are you this person? Are you that person? Right. If you had to answer to God today, who were you in this lifetime? And you went, well, maybe not so good. Right? But even, again, when I died and I had my version, I said, okay, who were you? And I tell my story, and then I get to review my life through the hearts of the people that I impacted or hurt or whatever, right? And so I think that part of it is we all, I was a good guy, I was this, I was that. We all have our version of the truth. And then there's reality, right? And so I think that part of, but I think that's the part of it for people that, we don't want to, I'm a horrible person, or I speak badly, or I'm shaming people all the time. I mean, that's, okay, if that's who you are, that's who you are. But then again, that part where, I was shown one particular person, I was bullied most of my life, and then people were bullying this other person, and I joined the crowd because I was, for the first time, not being bullied, and I thought, wow, that's kind of, but I saw it in my review, and I literally took me 3 years, and I found this woman. She literally was on a radio show, like a contest, and I literally got if I'd been a minute later, I wouldn't have heard her, and right? And I was like, I phoned the radio, and so that part of it is like to heal something. Yeah. If you really want to heal your stuff, then you know what, God's going to give you that opportunity. It literally was serendipity, like for me to be in my car at that time of day, playing on that exact radio station and hearing this woman who I've been looking for 3 years, right? And then I got the incredible gift and blessing about being able to help her we had the conversation, and she, disclosed some stuff that she had went through. So she came to me for healing, and we did some beautiful work together. So I think that part of it is that, who you choose to be, right? I think if every day you asked yourself, is this in part of inspiring and encouraging people, or am I taking somebody down? And I think that part of this journey is really if we self-reflect. I think that's what will shift our part of who we are in this lifetime.
I love it. I love it. Ray, I have enjoyed my morning with you, and I wish I had more time. We could just keep talking on and on, because I love the assessment of the self-reflection, and I think that we do not spend enough time in talking about the self-reflection, not the judgment, not the who taught you to judge, not any of the baggage that we bring, but just those moments that we could sit down and have some clarity about who we are and what we're supposed to be doing, and who are we really and truly, and stop doing the lip service, but really out there trying to make that positive change. I love it. Before I let you go, for the last time, if you could please, can you remind everyone, what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And definitely, how do we stay in contact with you?
All right. The book is It's Just an Experience, Get Over It. I'm on Facebook under that title. You can catch me on my website at www.soletosoul.ca, Soul to Soul. The books can be purchased on the website, or you can get them through Balboa Press.
I love it. Thank you again, Ray, for being on Daily Spark today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And listeners, thank you as well for spending some time with us today. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are truly blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.